All right, so to get started on seeing about our oil pump, we'll start on this side because it's the most difficult of the two. So first off, we got to get our oil out. And while we're doing that, we'll go over and disconnect the battery because we're dealing with this little solenoid right here that pulls the bendix gear over, and we got to disconnect the battery in order to not short that thing out. So let's let the oil drain, and then we'll go over to the other side and we will get the battery disconnected. Alright, so to disconnect the battery, we don't have to take the battery out. All we got to do is disconnect the negative. So fortunately, this is the negative side here. So if we just disconnect this, that disables the battery and we'll be good to go. So let's just take that little guy loose. And there we go. So now we don't have to worry about shorting anything out over on the other side, and we can go to taking that little bendix solenoid off of there, and we'll be in good shape. Alright, so back over here on this side, and what we got to do is get this little guy loose. So we got to take his cover off the back. So there's two little bolts right there, and so you just got to have a long screwdriver, and what we want to do is get in there and get those broke loose. What that does is allows us to back that little cover up right there. And we can take the bolts loose that are in the inside, and then we got a place that we can take our fingers and slide that out of there. Alright, so on to this little cover right here. We can take it loose, or we can start taking some of this off. We'll go ahead and pop that little cover off right there, and then we'll take off the bottom part. And it's just held on there with a couple screws. Yeah, see, my little gasket broke, so I'm going to have to get me another gasket. I'll probably just make one. Alright, so for this little mechanism right here, if you don't take all this loose, what it's going to do is pull all your gears out when it comes out. So we got to take this little pivot out of here, and it uses a little Torx bit. So what we want to do is unhook this little guy right here. There, we'll get him backed up a little bit, and then we got to take the pivot loose right here. So that's where this one comes off. Alright, so we got our pivot loose. So now we just take these two little guys loose, and that'll relieve some of the pressure on the mechanism and allow us to get everything freed up here. Alright. Now we just need to finish taking everything loose. So that guy comes off, and it can just sit in there like that. And then this little mechanism's got a spring on it that makes it retract. So what you do is push in on it, and then you can take that bolt out, and then when you relieve it with your thumb, it slides forward, and you capture all of this stuff. See, it slides in there like that, and then just tip it around, and you can take that whole mechanism out. It's just a little pivot right there. So pretty easy to do. And so now we got all of that loose, and this guy right here should be able to stay with the motor so we don't disconnect all the wire. So right now it feels like it's pretty tight in there. I'm gonna put this nut back on it and bonk it a little bit just to make sure it's freed up. There it goes. It did it by itself without me having to bonk it. So now this is freed up, and the reason why we slid that cover back is so we can get a hold of it and push it a little bit so we can slide it out of there. And now that's out of the way, we just let it hang down here. Alright, so let's get set up here, and we'll take all of this loose, and we'll take the clutch off, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so to get this all mechanism off of here, it's just held on with a bolt up front, bolt in the back, and then we got to take the shifter loose. So there we go. So the acorn nut comes off the back side, and then the whole big bolt slides out of there, and there's our side mechanism. So a bit annoying for these second gens, but it's doable. So now we'll just pick up all those parts and take them over to the parts. All right, so with everything cleared off the sides, all we got left is really the clutch, and then we can start taking bolts loose. So let's go ahead and get the little clutch cover off there. All right, so to get the clutch cable loose, there's a little tab that usually is right up under here, so we want to bend it out of the way. Then all we got to do is get something on there to relieve the tension on it, and then we can pop the cable out. So I just use a couple wrenches and actuate the clutch like that right there. I get the wrenches right. And then you just take your finger and push the cable, and it's free. So now that'll come out and we can leave our clutch all in place. So all we got to do is take the little bracket loose up top, and we'll have our clutch free. Slide up on the clutch cable, and out it comes. So we'll leave that bracket attached to the clutch cable, and these two screws are the same size, so we'll set them right back in there for right now. So that's about all we got other than the bolts. We just got to take the bolts loose and put them in our box right here so we keep up with who goes where, and we'll be ready to take the cover off. So now all we got to do is just remove a bunch of bolts. All right, so normally you don't have to take this little cover off to pull the side cover, but I'm going to pull it anyway because I want to check and make sure that that little seal in there is good, because this is the first time I've opened up this motor since I got the bike. So the easiest, best way to get these three off is with a little impact driver. And what we want to do is put the impact driver on there, because if you try it with just a screwdriver, a lot of times you'll strip them. So all you got to do is real simple to avoid stripping them, is just use one of those drivers, and it doesn't strip them out. So it's well worth the money to do that right there versus stripping these little guys out, and then they come out there so easy. So let's get these off, and we're going to look and make sure our little seal's still good in there. We're not going to be messing with the timing, so we really don't need to see anything under the cover. There we go. I don't think that thing's been off there in forever. So let's put our little screws back for that. And put him over there. This is what I wanted to check, was to see if that little guy is still good. So easy way to tell is just to take them off there and see if the threads are damaged or not. So well, everything looks good. So we're in good shape on that. I'll just put it back on there. So now we just need to pop the side cover off and see what it looks like in there. And we'll have to take the flywheel off to get to our little pump. But that's no big deal. We'll pull that off here in just a minute. So let's get our bolts out, and what we're going to do is just make us a bolt box here. So we just go around in the kind of the order that they are. Alright, so with bolts all free, just a little bit of persuasion, and we free that gasket up. And now we just want to take this box, set it right here, so then we can take it off and set it down on the box so we don't have to take all of our wire loose. So you can pull this little clip loose right here, and it'll allow you to get a little more room for your wiring. So we just pop that little clip off right there. We'll set it on top of the box so we can remember. Then that'll let that wiring come down a little bit. So then all we got to do is slowly ease that cover off of there. And hopefully all of our gears and everything stay if we do our job right. So there we go. So now we got the cover off. And we got to get this old gasket off of here. Get all that cleaned up, and then we'll be ready to install our new gasket. So we got to clean off all of that gasket material and get us a new gasket put on there. Looks like it was in pretty good shape on the gasket. So now we can check out the inside of the motor and see what's going on. So we got a little magnet right here that collects up crud, and it's actually still pretty clean, so we should be in good shape for that. Looks like this old motor may still have some life in it. Well, alright. So next off, we got to get the flywheel off to take the chain out so we can get the pump off.